Hi, I'm Brian Mason, and welcome into another one of these adventures. My guest today is Matthew Ward. Now, Matthew was one of the voices that helped create the sound of contemporary Christian music. He started as part of the 70s group Second Chapter of Acts, and they definitely are credited with changing the sound of Christian music. Matthew is a singer, a songwriter, a book author, a producer. He's released 9 solo albums and was part of 15 albums that Second Chapter of Acts put out, and also has recorded and performed with more than 50 contemporary music artists. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good for you to be here, and it's good to meet you, too, because I was telling you earlier, I've been in a room with you, I've been around you somewhat, but we've never met before today, which is astounding because I've played your music for years and years and years, since you were a wee little lad.
Since I was just a puppy.
That's right. Exactly right.
No, it's great.
It is.
Yeah.
Where did it all start for you? Let's go back to your humble beginnings.
Oh, my goodness. As far as just music? Or?
Well, you were born in...
I was born, yeah.
Yes, you were. Good,
that was the beginning.
We got that taken care of.
Yeah.
Good. You were born in the 1950s?
Yeah, 58. I was born.
Okay.
My parents were wonderful, hard worker, and he was. I never knew him not to be a hard worker. I always thought to myself, if I can take away one thing from my dad, it would be his work ethic, you know. He was a sweet guy. My mom was sick from the time I could remember. She had been misdiagnosed. They thought she had epilepsy, but it was actually a brain tumor that was growing, you know. She died post-op when I was 10 years old. And then my dad died 2 years later of leukemia, and they think he got that from spraying paint when it had lead in it and all that, and he didn't use any kind of protection. He just...
Was he a painter? Did he do that kind of stuff?
He ended up doing that.
Okay.
He was a sharecropper. He did all kinds of stuff. Just
whatever to take care of the family.
Whatever. That's what I always admired about him. We didn't have a lot, but we didn't go without either. We ate. That was...
Now, when you say we, you were the ninth of...
I'm the youngest of 9 children.
Catholic family by chance?
Definitely. Yeah, my dad, he was Catholic, but only because my mom drug him to church. I mean, he really, he could take that, he could take it or leave it, the whole faith thing. He was like, whatever,
Right.
Yeah. So
what was growing up as the ninth of 10 children in a family? A lot of love?
There was, like I said, my mom was sick from, I could remember, but she loved us, she was always struggling, physically, and like I said, misdiagnosed, and they had her on all these weird medications and whatnot, But she did the best she could, and I always admired her for that, for her efforts in trying to raise us crazy kids. Man, we were nuts growing up. I mean, it was the thing was, I was really fortunate, though, at least how I see it, when I was born. Up until I was about 5 years old, we lived in North Dakota, Grand Forks. And we always lived somewhere in North Dakota. But when my brothers were, obviously, before I came along, they would help Dad with the chores and the farm and doing all the hard stuff. I was too little. Then when my dad started painting houses, my brothers helped him paint the houses, and I was still too young to do that. I was like 10, 11, So that was awesome. I never had to do the hard stuff. I was fortunate. Just made it,
Good timing.
Yeah, it was perfect for me. But, I remember people ask me sometimes, well, you're obviously from a musical family. And it's like, well, sort of. I mean, my sister Annie, who was kind of in the middle of the 9, and Nellie and I went to live with my sister that's just older than I am. Went to live with Buck and Annie, my brother-in-law and sister, after my dad died. So there was still 4 kids living at home, and so we went to live with them. But I would always get asked, like, must have been a lot of music in your house when you were growing up. And I'm like, no, not really. And
well, didn't your mother play the piano, though?
That's what I've heard.
But you don't remember.
I never heard her play a note. We didn't have a piano in the house, and I never heard her play.
Huh.
But Annie told me that she was actually a very accomplished pianist.
Wow.
She's very good. Never heard her. My dad, he'd pull out the harmonica and hee-haw on it a bit, but nobody really sang. I always thought I'd be a drummer. I'd pull out the pots and pans and beat them with sticks. And I thought, yeah, everybody would look at me and go, yeah, he's going to be a drummer. And I still enjoy playing drums. I never do, but I like to do it. But singing was not really on my radar when I was real little. My sister Annie one day was curious if we could sing, meaning Nellie and I, before we came to live with her. And she had us on a walk, and she was singing this Christmas song. And she goes, here, you sing this part, and you sing that part. We just did it. And she's like, holy cow, these guys can sing. And that was really the start. I mean, she didn't know how to play piano yet. Buck, my brother-in-law, bought her a piano. She taught herself how to play it.
Wasn't it like a $50 piano?
Oh, yeah. It was called Brother Bear. Behr, I think it was, we called it Brother Bear. It wasn't Brother, but that was the brand, and it was just a funky old
missing keys.
Oh yeah, missing the ivories, just an old upright, just a beat up piece of junk, And she'd be like, Nellie and I'd come home from school, we'd pull up a chair, and she's like, "Oh, the Lord gave me another song," and we're like, okay, yeah, sure. We were really new to the whole Christian thing,
right,
and we didn't know what to think of some of that. The terminologies that people use in church, I would just scratch my head. I'm like, what?
Right.
But then she would sing this song. It's like, oh man, that's cool, And then one day she was doing that. Nellie and I pulled up chairs and we just started singing with her, and that was it. And
were the harmonies natural?
Natural.
So
she sang lead.
She didn't have to help you find the harmonies?
No, she's like, now you're going to do what's called the tenor part. No, I mean, it's just bam.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So you believe in that sibling harmony?
Oh,
natural.
Absolutely. Yeah. None of us ever had like any
vocal
musical
lessons.
Training. No vocal lessons.
Can you read music?
I cannot read a note. There are flies on paper to me. I can tell if it goes up or down.
Right. There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
you know more than most.
And it's funny. And I've written, I don't know how many songs, over 100.
But you can't score it.
But no, and I can't play anything well enough to write, like, pick up a guitar and, oh yeah, cool. I've written maybe 4 songs on guitar of all the songs I've written. All the other stuff is just, I hear it. I can hear the melody. I can tell if it's major, minor, but I couldn't tell you what chord it is. And if I'd get together with an arranger, keyboard player generally, and they would, I'd sing them the melody, and they go, okay, well, is this and I go, yeah, that's it. No, that's not the right chord. Okay, it goes like that. And sing them the bass line. Once you have the bass line and the melody, it's pretty easy to figure it out. Right. But it's a real pain in the butt trying to write that way because it limits your creative, go for it creativeness. You just have to.
So what's the songwriting process for? And we're jumping way ahead because I still want to go back to your childhood, but
yeah. What's
the songwriting process for you like?
Oh gosh, usually, not always. I'll get an idea, musical idea. I'll hear a tune, and then later I'll put lyrics to it. That's usually. But the last 10 years or so, I've written more stuff, getting the words, the lyrical ideas first, and then putting music to it. So it's kind of switched a little bit. But I do it all sorts of different ways, But I hear it done in my head. It's not a fun place to visit up there. I always tell people you don't even want to peek in there. It's like three ring circus, And in the center wing,
Wait till it comes out on the record. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You'll hear it. You'll hear what I'm thinking.
All right. Back to when you were learning this great collaborative effort with Annie and Nellie in the singing, learning to sing with the siblings. Annie's got these great songs that she's been writing, although Annie never called herself a songwriter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did she? She called herself a song receiver.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I was always, whatever, Annie. Like she puts up her the song net and catches the song as it drifts by.
Right.
But she's always said, no, I don't write songs. I get them from the Lord. The Lord gives them to me. I receive them.
What's an interesting concept?
It's work. I have to write songs. I don't.
Right.
The Lord. There's been some exceptions to that. I wrote a song called "Love" about my mom actually praying for me, and it did really well on the radio. That song just came. I mean, it was like. Wow, because it was. I saw the story in my head,
right,
and I just made it rhyme, and I'm done. So I got really fortunate with that one, and a few songs have been like that. Very just they just came right down the pipe, and there it was.
So there's a sense sometimes of just tuning the radio, and here it comes, and receiving.
Yeah.
So you get that, but sometimes, like you said, usually it is work.
Oh, it's just hammer and nails, man.
Yeah, but
You
Annie
bet.
seems to be able just to tune the radio.
Annie has. I've seen her chisel away on a few tunes, you know. But by and large, yeah, they just kind of get sort of dropped in her lap, which is great.
Have you watched the simplest process for her? Have you watched an Easter song just fall in her?
Oh yeah.
In her lap?
Oh yeah.
Were you there when
Especially-
Easter song was written?
I was there. Yeah. I don't remember, the day or,
Yeah.
what she was wearing or whatever. But I mean, I do remember that when she got that song. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's cool, And yeah, I went in the studio and the drummer's like, I just don't hear drums on this. and then we're like, well, we kind of do. So, but then he figured it out and he goes, oh, okay. Once he got the idea in his head, oh man, he slammed it,
Well, I'm trying to think where the drums come in. I guess they come in on the pickup on the, not the opening singing.
Yeah,
Hear the
because
bells
it's taka
ringing.
taka digga taka taka
That's
digga
right.
taka taka
Yeah.
digga, the blam blam blam. The
There
drums.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that was a lot of those studio processes were really fun because, like getting Phil Keggy at the studio, for instance. The first time we hired him, we heard his "What a Day" album. I wasn't really familiar with any of his. What was the rock band that he was in?
Glass harp.
Glass Harp. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with any of the Glass Harp stuff.
Yeah, because Buck
Yeah.
produced
Buck
his second
produced
album.
He produced all of our second chapter stuff.
Well, but produced Phil's second album.
Yeah,
Love Broke Through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause he
Mylon Lefevre sang backgrounds on that album with us.
did?
Oh, it was hilarious.
on Phil's Love Broke Through?
Yeah, on that album. It's me and Annie and Nellie and Mylon.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was like,
know that.
he goes, there was one of the songs had words that were, going by pretty quick and we doing it. And he goes, man, I just can't make words that fast. How are you doing? How do you do that?
I couldn't keep up.
He was like, oh, I'll try. He finally did it, but it was hilarious. He couldn't make his mouth move that fast. How are you doing that?
Wow.
He's a sweetheart.
Well, Phil talks about Keith coming to Buck and Annie's house
Mm-hmm.
and borrowing Phil to cut the demo for Your Love Broke Through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and after hearing it, that's when they were looking for another song to put on that album.
Right.
And after hearing it, Phil and Buck said, "Yeah, let's make this a track for it." And it turned out to be the title cut
Right.
for Phil's "Your Love Broke Through." So,
Yeah. You remember more about that than I do.
and I wasn't even there.
But it does sound like Keith to come over and steal somebody out of our house to do
Yes.
something. That's definitely was Keith.
Yeah,
He was
yeah,
a hoot.
Yeah, interesting story. I want to get to Keith in just a little while.
Sure.
But something else that happened during that time, which has become an interesting story. It's told in the "To the Bride" album, came out in 1975, and it's Barry McGuire, who's, as I understand, was at Buck and Annie's house one time, and you and young Nellie are upstairs, I think, in bed.
Yeah, we were asleep, actually.
already asleep.
Yeah, we had to get up for school,
Oh, good. And so, but you get called down or
Yeah.
you're awakened and you hear some noise going on or whatever.
Buck's like, so Barry wanted Buck to produce his first Christian album. He had recently become a Christian.
Barry McGuire, we need to
Barry
say.
McGuire.
New Christy Minstrels.
Right.
Big.
Broadway production of Hair.
That's
the
right.
original.
Big in the folk business,
Yeah.
folk singing.
Eve
and
of
stuff.
Destruction
Oh,
was this
yeah.
big hit
Yeah.
in the 60s.
So a big deal.
Anyway, he was a big deal. I mean, even I knew who Barry McGuire was, as a kid. But Buck told Barry, said, "Hey, you should hear my family sing." And Barry's like, "Oh, here we go, man. Oh, make it stop." I mean, he was very
Polite.
polite about
Yes.
it. But he told us later, his wheels just started spinning, going, "Oh, this is just going to be horrible." So he came up, woke us up. There you go. Talk about not warmed up to sing. You sing that song, but I don't remember which one it was. And we sang a song I think we sang a couple. And Barry was like, his jaw was like on the ground. He's like, holy cow. And so, so we ended up doing the backgrounds. That was one of the first things I think we ever recorded was working on Barry's, I think it was called Seeds album.
His first album.
Yeah, his first one.
And then you went on the road with it.
And then we traveled on the road. And I remember like it was yesterday. I had to get used to it because it was weird. We'd go on stage, nervous as could be, because we never, I mean, I'm an introvert, very much so. And so for me to get up on stage and sing and try to present anything live is the scariest thing in the world. I mean, my brother told me years ago, I said, man, my brother Tony had a great voice, unbelievable singer. I said, man, how come you don't sing? He goes, I don't know how you can do it. I don't know how you can get on stage and do that. And I said, you know what? I don't either. I just do it because that's what I do. But anyway, where was I going with that? So we started singing with Barry. I remember, like I said, like it was yesterday, going out, doing a couple of second chapter. We only had a few songs. We had like 6 songs or something. So we did them. But the first couple of dates that we did with Barry, because people weren't there because Barry was a Christian singer. Mm-hmm. They were there because they knew him from all of his secular stuff. Mm-hmm. But out he comes doing this Jesus stuff, and they're all going, okay, whatever. So second chapter came out and sang, and it was so weird because we'd get done, song done, you could hear a pin drop. Mm-hmm. Nobody clapped. And I was like, at first I thought, oh, they just hate us, Mm-hmm. But then I realized, no, they just had never heard anything like that.
They don't know what to do with you.
They were like, what?
Yeah.
And then, as the evening would progress, they'd, shh, do a little applause here and there. But I remember that thinking, oh man, we're going to get, booed off the stage. That was really weird.
Well, one thing you said in the book, and we'll talk more about the book as well. My second chapter, what a great title,
yeah.
The story of Matthew Ward's story. You said in the book, as I mentioned before, Annie, Nellie, and I never intended to become a group that would perform in public. For one thing, you would have been hard-pressed to find 3 people more insecure and shy about performing. We couldn't believe that people wanted to listen to us sing.
Yeah.
That's astounding to me.
Well, that was just exactly how we felt about it. We didn't, people were like, hey, would you come and sing at our coffee house or whatever? We're like, okay,
You talking to me?
Us? You want us to come in?
Wow.
So we never thought of ourselves as like, we have it, like we're great. I don't know. I just never looked. It's too scary.
So was it you, the 3 of you? Was it the freshness of what was happening in the Jesus movement? Was it the Word? Because Annie was writing some incredible stuff that was feeding people.
Yeah.
Was it the combination? Was just what was going on at that time? What do you think was drawing people and just making them so hungry for what you guys were doing?
I think because I think they could see in us that we weren't doing it for any other reason than just to be what we felt was obedient. We were doing what we felt like the Lord wanted us to do. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily, sometimes it wasn't what we wanted to do, but it was, we did it anyway. And we had some, rough years and stuff like that, but we stayed with it because we really felt like that's what God had for us. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a combination of all the things that you just listed. It was the early days of the Jesus movement. People were looking for something besides just their lives. They were looking for something outside of themselves, something that could speak into their hearts. And Jesus showed up for people in a real way, and I think it was all of that, just our genuine, not full of ourselves at all, just doing, scared to do it, but doing it anyway. Right. I think that's why the Lord used us as much as he did, is that we were, to whatever extent, able to get out of the way, mm-hmm. and just present and not try to be something, but just, this is what we've come to find out about the Lord. And isn't this great? We were hungry. We were new Christians. We were, reading the Word constantly, and
we, the fans, don't even ever think about that.
Right.
That you've got to be fed.
Right.
You're not just this this giver of life that's
right.
passing on. You've got to be the receiver in so many ways. Something I was going to ask you about later, but now's a good time to bring this up. You've had the unique perspective of seeing the Jesus music movement from its beginnings.
Yeah.
You guys started recording in 72, 3?
Yeah.
We're along in there.
Yep.
and saw that movement. I mean, some of the Jesus music and movement started in the late '60s,
Right.
but you were there pretty much. You were there before the quote unquote contemporary Christian music movement came along.
Yeah, it wasn't called anything yet. It was called Jesus music.
Music, yeah, exactly.
That's what it was called.
So you saw a lot of transition come about. You saw a lot of change in the industry,
Yeah.
so to speak. Do you have an opinion on? I had a feeling.
You
Go
know,
ahead. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go.
yeah, I'm
leave.
gonna
I'm going to go get my
I'm gonna
car
go
washed.
grab a coffee.
Tell me,
You know,
what do you
I,
think?
you know, it's weird, and I'm not as worried about saying this now as I would have been 30 years ago. But I never enjoyed listening to Christian music. I don't like it. Isn't that weird? People are like, "So, what do you think of this band?" I'm like, "There's a band called that." I mean, I couldn't tell you who's doing what.
Are you talking about today? Or
I'm
30
talking
years
about
ago?
yes,
all along the way.
all along the way. I was always sneaking music into the bus, you know, because Buck didn't want us listening to that devil stuff, you know. I was listening to everybody, man. Stevie Wonder, Chicago, just, you know, all of it. I loved music, but to me, the Christian music, and I don't know if it was just because, you know, they just didn't have a budget, maybe. I mean, it's just a lot of the production, just musically, it didn't float my boat. Most of it. So there were exceptions. I like some of the stuff Phil was doing, and even most of his albums I've really never even heard that much of. I'm a huge fan of his. I'll be seeing him really soon. He's coming to our hometown here coming up, and I'll probably get on stage and sing with him like I do every time he comes to town. We have a blast, you know. But I don't know. It doesn't. It's never, for some reason, it just doesn't hold my interest or something. I know it's kind of like, wow, I'm shooting myself in the foot, but there you go. Oh, we'll just edit all this out. You know, it's like, you know, from here to there, let's not use any of that.
I don't know how much money have you got, Matt. We'll
Yeah,
edit out.
really?
We'll see what we edit out.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, and I can commiserate with you on much of what you're saying.
Yeah.
But there have been such a ton of changes. But just as far as the industry,
Yeah.
I use that word, and I hate saying business or industry, because in the very beginning days, when you guys started doing what you were doing, you didn't have focus groups, and you guys didn't check and see what people thought about what you were doing. You did
Right.
it out of obedience, and you
Right.
did it out of
Yeah.
pure love for what
It's
God
like,
was leading
why,
you to do.
Why wouldn't you do this? It's
Exactly,
kind of-
and certainly when you did your concerts for
Yeah.
love offerings, when
Oh.
you started doing those kinds of things,
You want to hear something?
please.
Yeah. I'm good at that. I'm good at talking. No, just kidding.
Once again,
you
I'm
said
leaving.
love offerings. And
Yes.
yeah. We never charged. You know, we did eventually charge people $1 that helped cover the cost of the seats, basically, if those union gigs and stuff like that.
Sure.
But we didn't charge a ticket price, you know. But I won't even tell you what we averaged, how many cents a person we averaged in the offering. But let me just say that the last year that we toured, last year was 1988. And we felt like the Lord told us, you know, you guys are done. You know, kids are getting older, they're getting in school. And it was just getting, you know, it was time to hang it up. And, but that year we made more money than we did in any of the other years.
When you were charging,
No, we didn't charge.
did you never charge a ticket price?
No, just $1 to help cover the cost of the
I was
seat. We
thinking that-
never charged tickets.
Okay, I thought that
It was
came along
always
later. Okay.
offering.
Okay.
But we started getting bigger crowds, and selling more records. But the last year we toured, we made more money that year than we had in any other particular year, any other year. And I'm like, and now you want us to quit? We're actually making money now. And it's like, wow. Yeah, I don't know. That was always weird to me. It's like, really? Dangle the carrot, oh Lord, you know? Yeah, I never quite got that one, but okay. Strange.
All right, jumping way back now, back to your Dakota days, listening to music. The radio was a part of your musical enjoyment, wasn't it?
It really, it was up until I was until I moved in with Buck and Annie, because they didn't want me listening to that devil stuff, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what were you
So,
listening to?
just mostly Motown. Motown
That
stuff.
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Hearing you sing,
Yeah.
that doesn't surprise me. Motown would be something you would just gravitate to.
The white singers, they just, I mean, whatever. They, here we go. They
Edit.
edit. Anyway, but that music just bored me to tears. I couldn't stand. I mean, some of the pop stuff was fun when I was a kid, but I enjoyed the soulful Otis Reddings and Sam Cookes and
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder. I remember the first time I heard Stevie Wonder. You want to know what I said? That guy sings like me. Yeah. Anyway, because people would always say, "Man, you sound." I go, "Yeah, I know, I get that." But yeah, so yeah, the radio was a big part. I remember when we lived in, we'd moved from North Dakota like when I was 5 years old, so I wasn't really listening to a lot of radio when I was 5. But the subsequent years, up until I was about 12. Radio was huge, and my it just so happened that I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually listening to radio stations that my brother-in-law was DJing and or program director for.
Buck was working at radio stations.
Yeah, he worked at KXOA and KROI Croy
So you could have
in
been
Sacramento.
listening to him.
Oh, I did hear him when I was growing up.
Do you remember listening to him, or you just happened to be working at the
was just
station? Okay.
Talking head in a box. I had no idea. I never put it together,
Right.
But when he said, "Yeah, no, I used to work for this," I go, "Those are my two favorite stations." Both, of course,
Wow.
AM.
Yeah.
FM didn't exist.
Sure.
So yeah, and we had this little one speaker,
Sure.
the run the dial up and down the
Yeah.
face of the gizmo, bread box size radio.
Horrible quality, but who cares?
Terrible.
Yeah.
It's just horrible, but enough to get the idea, right? Taught me harmony. I
Yeah.
learned, that and vacuum cleaners and dishwashers and stuff. I'd
You
sing
found
to,
harmonies and everything.
I
didn't
do.
you?
I'll sing to anything that oscillates, anything that makes a frequency. I can sing to it. It doesn't matter what it is. So that's good. And people are probably my least favorite thing to sing with. No, just kidding. Oh, those people. Yeah. But
Wait
anyway,
for
no.
your-
So I remember particular memories of my dad had enclosed our garage because, there were still kids living at home. A lot of them were already married and gone, my siblings. There were still 4 of us at home. And so he converted or 5 or 6 of us were still at home. It's at one point, little tiny 900 square foot house. I mean, it was,
Wow.
so he converted the garage into a bedroom, and me and 2 of my other brothers would sleep in this room. So we had the radio out there in that room. And I remember we turned all the lights off, and the tubes back in the day, right, would glow out the little drilled holes in the back of the press board and splash this really cool design of light up against the wall out of the back of the radio. I remember that.
Yeah.
And just looking at
Exciting.
that and listening to music when I was a kid. Weird memories, but I remember that that reflection on the wall was very interesting.
Well, so to be fair to Buck, by the time you ended up moving in with he and Annie,
Yeah.
they had become believers.
They had recently become Christians, probably about a year and a half before
They
we
got
moved
married
in with them.
and
then
became
they
believers. Yeah.
became
So the devil music thing
Yeah.
was a legitimate thing for them.
Yeah, especially Buck coming out of radio, and
Yeah.
he saw the effects of
Radio and other things. I mean, it
radio
was-
and other things.
Yeah.
I mean, he enjoyed a lot of the other things that would go along with that world.
Yeah.
He also was responsible for bringing in some pretty big acts, and like he had the Stones come into Sacramento one time, and he told me some stories about that, and he goes, "Yeah, I couldn't believe the stuff I was seeing."
I bet he's got some great stories.
Oh, he's got some wild
and
stories.
did he work in recording studios too?
He did after he became a Christian, he quit being a DJ, and he picked up being an audio engineer, studio engineer.
Yeah.
And just kind of taught himself how to do it. It wasn't a big leap going from radio, a lot of bells and
Right.
whistles and knobs, and he learned how to edit tape and splice and do all
Which
that.
became invaluable
Oh,
for
yeah.
later on.
Oh yeah.
I
So he
remember-
produced all the second chapter stuff. He was the engineer,
Oh, yeah.
And he would mix it. On a lot of the albums, we would do we'd all go in the room and put our 2 cents in when we were mixing. I helped him mix a lot, And then we hired another guy named Greg Hunt, who actually just passed away recently. He's one of my best friends. I've done all but one of my solo albums with him.
We talked about Keith Green just a little while ago. You knew Keith Green before he was a recording artist.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience, because I wasn't aware of those days.
Yeah. Well, first met Keith. He was just starting to begin what would later become like Last Days Ministries, where it developed out of this. He had a house, and he had some people that kind of moved in and would kind of communal thing and living with him when he was a new Christian. And he was just so, zealot. He was such a zealot. He just get in your face and get in anybody's face and go and argue and discuss. And it was really something. But I remember the early days. Yeah. I would spend the night at his house sometimes, and just hang out with him. And we were friends. I mean, we definitely were. We could only handle so much time together. It was a little oil and water kind of vibe, but because he was so, just nose to the stone kind of guy, and I was like, whatever, and so he couldn't understand that part of me, how I could be that way, and I didn't understand why he couldn't just loosen up his shirt a little bit. He was always on, and but I loved him. He was a great guy. We had a lot of good times together. I remember working on one of the albums. I think it was So You Want to Go Back to Egypt. I think it was that album. And we were in LA at this restaurant, cutting up with these guys, the waiter, and just going off. It was pretty funny stuff. It was very unusual for Keith to let his hair that far down,
Right.
But he could do it, and it was fun. It was fun to get him to do it once in a while. So,
Well, you said something in the book, and it was something that I heard Randy Stonehill recalled from a Randy Stonehill interview, and it's almost the same thing. You said most of the time Keith acted as if he knew his time on earth was short, and he wanted to make the most of it for the kingdom.
yeah.
Like he knew something was coming, and he didn't have an awful lot of time.
Yeah, I think I figured it out the other day. I think he was only a Christian for like 7 years.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and he got so much done. It's like, holy cow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So I've always admired him for that. It was so funny one day. He's like, Matt, I need a prayer partner. Would you be my prayer partner? I'm thinking, okay, And then he was just starting the ministry, and he considered himself the head of that ministry,
Right.
which he was, and then he started like sharing these stories with me about, and I go, what, I don't want to hear this stuff, I'm good. And so I prayed with him. Like, I think he came to the house like 2 or 3 times, and we prayed together. But I saw the writing on the wall where it's like, this is not going to work, man. I don't want to go there. I don't want to be the guy you bounce all this stuff off of, and So we quit doing that. But that was hilarious.
Do you remember where you were when you heard he died?
Yes, I was in New York City doing. With Second Chapter, we were singing we were doing outreaches for David Wilkerson. He wrote Crossing the Switchblade and Run Baby Run, and
Another East Texas guy.
Another East Texas guy. We were actually doing inner city crazy stuff out on flatbed trailers,
Wow.
Places where the cops didn't go in New York. Crazy. Guy was
Wow.
walking around with a clear plastic bag full of joints, just selling them to people. Clear, you could see. The cops didn't even show up. That's how just unbelievably bad parts of town. But that's when I heard
Like he said.
somebody came to my hotel room. Hey man, I just heard the blah blah blah, and I'm like, wow, really? I thought they were kidding, but
And where you were living at the time was in Lindale. The Second Chapter of Ministries was right.
yeah, we had
An adjacent property to Last Days.
yes, we had
wasn't it,
100
where Keith-
acres. They had, I think, 400. We had 100, or they had 500. We had 100, and yeah, our property lines they were joined.
Wow.
And his plane literally went down at the end of their runway, which was, I would say, a quarter mile away from my single wide trailer that my wife and I so much loved. Not. Yeah, I think about things that I've done in my life that were bad investments. Oh my God.
And your wife still loves you.
just enough, you know. I always tell people I'm still married to my first wife. You know, I'm not in the collecting business. I'll just, yeah. Oh man. But anyway, yeah. So his plane literally went down a quarter mile from our place. So when I got home, I went and found the site where it went down, and I could see where it hit the trees on the way down, and just a mess. Just a mess. I still have a piece of the plane, one of the lights. It's from the heat. It's all, the glass is still in it, but it's all cracked.
And you've kept it. You've got
I have
it in your office.
It's on top of one of my speakers in my stereo room downstairs, on the right speaker, actually. In case you break into my house and you want to get it, that's where it is. Edit.
You don't forget. Yeah, edit.
Edit.
Do you stay in touch with Melody?
I don't. Buck and Annie have stayed in touch with her. No particular reason. It's not like I don't like her or something. We just have no real reason to chat much, so I don't. My wife and I did a cruise. I've done a bunch of them singing. You know, it's nice to go on a cruise and they pay you to go, yeah, and you work for an hour. That's it for like 5 days. Anyway, I was doing this like old geezer Christian thing, you know, Barry Maguire, Dallas Home,
right,
so on and so forth,
yeah.
right. And I was just one of the artists, and so I loved doing those. They were fun, and I love Alaska, right? So we'd go up there every year. There's a reason I'm talking about this.
Melody.
Melody, yeah. That was one of the last times that we actually, it was on an anniversary. One of the years, it was on the anniversary of Keith passing away. And she was on the cruise with us, and she started getting all these, you know, calls and texts and all this stuff. And we just said, you know what? Give me your phone. Let's make some new memories. You don't need to keep doing this every year, you know. And so we took, my wife and I grabbed her. When we got into port, I don't remember what town it was, but we just went and just spent the whole day with her and just got her mind off it.
Turn the phone off.
Yeah, just tried to. I took her phone. And I said, nope, not today. We're not going there. So, but it was good. That was probably the last time I really spent like all day with her, you know, and that was some years back. But
did you ever tour with Keith to do any kind of concerts or anything with him?
We did. I can't even remember where it was. We did a couple of venues together, but we never toured together. They were just one-offs.
Do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
Yes.
Okay. Next question.
No, I did. Yeah, good enough. You remember.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah, that's just testing.
Can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
No, were you a teenager? Or were you?
I was a teenager. It was on. We did an album. I taught myself how to play acoustic guitar a little bit, and it's one of the few songs I've written on guitar. It was actually we did an album called The Roar of Love, which is
C.S. Lewis.
it was based on the first book, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. The whole album. The only reason the music stopped was because you had to flip the record over. All the songs they just went right into each other.
Really?
Yes.
So get the CD. It's what you need to do.
You need to get the CD.
Yeah.
And it's still probably just about one of my favorite Second Chapter albums. I love that album. I mean, there's things about it that are dated, the drum sounds and this and that and the other, a lot of synth, you know. But it's an amazing piece of music. I think it is. I think it's just phenomenal. I love it. But anyway, song. First song I ever wrote was called White Stag, and it's on that album. Saw him running through the western wood, very rare sight to see.
Guitar right over here if you
Oh,
want.
I don't even know what the chords are anymore. But that was the first song I ever wrote.
Would it have been intimidating for you because Annie is such a gifted receiver? I mean, she can just probably sit at a drop of a hat and just boom, boom, boom. Just
I always tell
bang
people
things out.
she'll write 2 songs before breakfast and get a little something at brunch. And I mean, she was for a while, you know. She still is. I think she's still writing. She retired about 8, 9 years ago, but she's very prolific and just.
Was there any intimidation for you to go, here, I wrote this song? With
I didn't think it was any good, you know, because
that's what I mean.
because I wrote it.
Exactly.
And Phil's like, no, man, it's cool. And Keggy picked it. He goes, no, man, this is great. So they threw it on the album. It's near the end of the project. one of the last tunes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's on there.
All right, you touched on this a bit ago. Do you have a favorite second chapter album? You said Roar, but
Oh man,
if you had to pick an all-time favorite second chapter album,
yeah. You know, it's funny because sometimes I'll hear cuts from different albums and go, "Oh man, what a great song!" You know, but I'd be like, "That wasn't my favorite album." I would say right up there would be the last one we did, which was called "Faraway Places." I thought that was a really, really good record.
Why?
I don't know. I liked the songs. I liked the way it turned out musically. I liked the way it sounded. I don't know. Just that one more than some of the other ones. It floated my boat a little more than some of the other ones from a creative standpoint. And I think I was able to be more involved in that one too, from a mixing standpoint and stuff. I was a little more hands-on. I'm not saying that it was better because of that, but that's just I have memories of that, and they're fond. And
we'll go back to the first one or two.
oh, geez,
Footnotes and
in the volume of the book.
Yeah, that was brand new stuff.
That's the only project we didn't own. Was our first one.
Really?
Yes.
The record label had it and has it.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Buck got smart pretty early on, but
And then-
not quite soon enough.
'Cause those
Just
were
missed it by
successful.
that.
Just that
Yeah,
much.
that much. That would have been a good album to have owned. That one,
Wow. Do you
because it had
remember?
Easter song on it and everything else.
Do you remember the process? Do you remember the?
I do because because it was so. I'd never experienced. You know, I was raised in a poor family, and I'd go swimming in the river in the summer. Did terrible in school, but it was a very interesting process to me. The recording, it fascinated me. I remember one memory in particular. I think it was on our first album. Could have been the second one, because I think Omardian was involved in that one. But he wrote all the string charts and all the stuff for us. And I remember going out and laying on the floor with the whole section out in the studio, string players.
Wow.
And just, you can stay out here, but you have to be quiet, And I'm like, oh, I get that. If I make a noise, you'll hear it.
You recorded.
Yeah. I said, okay. So, I for like a whole song, and that was back in the day when they would like, that's great. We need one more just like that. And then they double stack it, right?
Yeah.
But just laying in the middle of that was the most amazing. You can imagine I'd never heard anything. I never heard a live band.
You would have been 13 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That would
Maybe
have been
14,
exciting.
somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
But still.
But I was just a punk kid, and I'd never heard anything like that.
And
You
did
could
you
hear
know
the
at the time?
rosin. I mean, it just,
Oh, you felt
oh,
it
you
in
could
your
feel
bones,
it.
yeah.
I've never experienced. I was just in awe. My jaw was just hanging open. Like,
Did
this
you
is
know you
amazing.
wanted to be a recording artist at that time, or is that what helped you make that
Well, it
plunge?
certainly didn't deter me.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I didn't know what I did or didn't want to do.
Yeah. But
that
that would help.
But I loved music. I always have, and I always got a kick out of recording with my sisters doing vocals. We had such a great time in the studio. Generally, sometimes we're like, "I told you not to."
Now, with
We'd
you
bite
guys,
each other's heads off. But
Was there a lot of, okay, do that again, one of you singing flat? Or one
Oh,
of you-
sure, it would happen.
There was a lot of that. Or
well, not a lot of that because we're really good singers.
That's
yeah.
what- that's
I'm
what I
just
was trying to
saying,
say. Yeah.
not a lot of that.
Yeah.
But you have to realize we would double stack or triple stack the vocals
okay.
on almost everything. Not necessarily a lead here and there, but when it was group stuff, it was stacked. So it had to be perfect. I mean, as perfect as you could.
Sure.
It was before the days of digital anything, Pro Tools and all that. Now they have auto tune.
Yeah.
So if you sang that one note a little flat, but you liked the performance,
fix it.
tweak the note.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Not back then. You had to record the whole thing over again,
Right.
or a piece of it. You call punch in and punch out on the tape machine. You record a part of it.
Were you recording live with the band in those days?
No.
Okay, so the band would do their part, and you
Yeah,
guys would come
and
do
we'd
your
add the vocals
But you
later.
three would be singing live together.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Yeah, usually, sometimes even around one mic. Sometimes we'd have our own mics, but so that we wouldn't have to stand them.
All right, we talked about albums. Do you have a favorite second chapter of Acts song?
I can't even remember all of them.
Okay. Well, is there a song that whether it did real well radio-wise or did well in concerts or whatever, a song that you thought,
There was one that I really always enjoyed singing, and the reason I had nothing but good memories of the song because I think it was the only song that we'd stacked it as well. Was the only song that we recorded from beginning to end perfectly. We didn't have to go fix anything. All three of us.
wow,
And then we did it again.
perfectly?
Yep.
Wow.
And
Short
that was
day.
a song called The Gray Song. Even when the skies are gray, I know I'll find a way.
Which
It's almost
album?
kind of country-ish vibe to it. Oh,
Well, it was one of the first albums. That was an early album. Yeah.
earlier album.
Yeah.
It's a cool song. But I always enjoyed that tune. I don't know why, just because it came so easy, I guess. I love things that aren't hard. Yeah.
Get done and move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
All right. And a similar question, and I wrote it down, and I did it specifically so I could ask it right. You've sung all over the world, literally, in front of audiences of all sizes.
Oh, man.
Is there a particular performance that remains with you as a favorite? Whether it's singing in a hospital for a kid in a bed or a
Right.
gigantic
Which I've done that
stadium
too.
someplace, and you've done Promise Keepers and stuff, and
Yeah,
you've
that
done
was-
all kinds of stuff. But is there a particular performance that you go in your head and you go, "I'll never forget that"?
That was great. For different reasons though. Like, for instance, I was singing in a church in Arizona years ago, and there wasn't anything that remarkable about the concert itself. But as I'm singing, I'm looking out in the middle of this church, full. The church was full. Not a huge church, maybe a couple hundred people. And out in the middle, I go, man, if that doesn't look like Glenn Campbell, you know. So I thought, well, if it is Glenn Campbell, I better sing really well. So I pulled out all the stops. I killed it, right? And then afterwards, Glenn Campbell comes up on the stage and we start talking.
You're kidding.
No, he came to my concert.
Whoa.
He goes, man, you sing high like I do. I go, heck yeah, man. That was a memorable,
That's great.
not necessarily a favorite one, but
No,
that was a
very
memorable,
memorable.
obviously.
Yes.
Another very memorable thing that I did. And Annie and I would always try to top each other.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I sang here, you know, or I was with the Pope, or what, you know, whatever it is. We're always trying to top each other. I finally got her though.
Right.
And I said, oh, Annie, you would have loved this where I was the other day. She's like, what? I said, well, I asked the curator and she said, no, I couldn't do it. Yet. I was in Moscow on Red Square, St. Basil's, you know, the multicolored church chapels.
Yeah.
And I asked them, can I sing a cappella in one of these churches for my friends? We're like
Right.
8 or 9 people.
Wow.
And so that was kind of a cool moment. She says, you know, you must be quick and you can't. She didn't want me to do it. I said, please, please, please let me do it. And she was like, you know,
Yeah.
you know, I give you a large kiss, you know, Boonya hug. You know, she was something. She could have taken me out, but but she said, okay, go ahead, but make it quick, you know.
Yeah.
And I had an interpreter
Right.
with us, and that was again not one of my favorite things, but a very memorable
What
thing
did
to be singing in one of those chapels.
What did you sing?
Gosh, I think I sang. I don't even know who wrote it, or I don't even know the whole song, but it was because I just did a piece of it. Song was called "Cover Me," you know, stretch the corner of your mantle over me, because thou art my nearest kinsman.
Yeah.
You know, it's cool. So I just sang that, you know, just a couple seconds of it. You know, I didn't want to, you know.
But it reverberated.
Oh, it was
all-
really cool. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Did
I
anybody
thought-
record it? Just
No,
on
of course
the phone
not.
or anything?
No, I think it was before cell phone.
Oh, okay.
This was back, golly,
80s.
I'm going to guess maybe mid 90s.
Okay.
But
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
yeah,
That's very cool.
that was fun. Favorite one though? I don't know. I got to play drums once for 80,000 people.
Yeah, at Promise Keepers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was
there,
for
there I
fun.
was on the Jumbotron. That's right.
Hey, that looks like
Yeah,
It is me.
Smitty Price had heard me play. I'd played with him before in other groups that we were doing stuff together, and he's like, he can play drums, okay, you know.
Do you
So-
consider yourself a drummer?
No, I mean not really. I have a set of drums, but they're not even put up.
Right.
interesting story about those drums.
Yes.
They're actually there's a little rock band called Kansas. Maybe you've heard of them.
Little rock band.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, Kerry Livgren played on some of our records.
Uh-huh.
Played on Rejoice and something else. And that there's a whole story I'm not going to go into about Buck. And some guy wanted to talk to me. He wanted me to come out and sing on something that they were doing.
Right.
He ended up getting Ronnie James Dio to do it, which is okay. But anyway, my one chance of working with Kerry in the studio. But anyway, Kerry heard me play drums in the studio, and he goes, "You don't have a set of drums?" I go, "No." He goes, "Okay." So what he did was he bought their drummers a set of drums that they had used on the Monolith album and on the Monolith tour. So I have this whole Slingerland, chrome Slingerland drum set that was Kansas drum set.
That they used in the recording
On the album
on
and
the
live.
tour. Good night.
Yeah.
And you're not a
And it's not. It's just in a closet in a box. I have it stuck back there. But it's cool. If I ever want to sell it, I could probably get some money for it.
probably could,
Or
to a
say, "Hey,
collector."
Kerry, do you want these drums back?"
So, how did the Promise Keepers thing happen?
Well, as it turns out, one of my best friends, a guy named Buddy Owens,
Carolyn, Jimmy Owens.
Jimmy and
son.
Carol Owens' boy. We kind of grew up together. I've known him since I was probably 14. Right after I moved to LA, basically, we lived with them for a while. Doing different, trying to get our feet on the ground. He got involved with Promise Keepers, and he's such a brainiac. I mean, the guy's brilliant. He does all this stuff for Purpose Driven Life.
Rick Warren.
Rick Warren, yeah, he's a pastor there at Rick Warren's church at Saddleback, yeah. And you should hear some of his teachings are just off the charts. They're incredible. Anyway, so he got involved in what it was 95, I think, and because I had just gone through cancer in 94, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Not much." And he goes, "Hey, man, I want you to get involved in this. You won't believe what's going on, And I said, "Okay." And he told me about it, and I ended up doing about seven or eight of those stadium events in 96.
As a singer?
I was in the worship band.
Okay. With a bunch of other people. What a band that would have been.
Joseph Garlington was the pastor. He is a pastor and was the leader of our worship team. They had 3 or 4 different bands that would go out because they did events, not just, sometimes they would hook up 2 stadiums, do simulcast with, it was crazy.
Matthew, what's that like?
Oh.
I went to a couple of the events, but what's that like being in a stadium with 50 to 80,000
amazing.
men? You're leading worship with your team, and there's 80,000 men singing with you.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that was great. The only thing that it was the early days of in-ear monitors, and I hated them because it took you away from that. So I'd always have one off, and, and whatever. I just fake it, because I wanted to hear. You know.
Experience.
It was amazing. I'll tell you what, my best memory was the year before I started doing the events. Was in the Bronco Bowl, back when they had a Bronco Bowl in Denver. Well, it's called something else now. They tore the old one down years ago, but it's back in the day. There were 50,000 men there, but I walked out to the center of the floor because I wasn't singing yet.
You were just a participant.
I was just there.
Just a guy.
But he said, "I want you to come out to this one, check it out, see if you want to do this with us." And so I walked out in the middle, and 50,000 men singing "A Mighty Fortress" a cappella. I have never in my life, before or since, heard anything like it. I mean, I'm thinking about it now. I'm still getting goosebumps. And I just finished doing chemotherapy. I was severely depressed, going through a real super depressed state, and God just met me on that floor. It was powerful. Just to hear men.
That's it. That's what I was
God,
wondering
it was so
about.
powerful.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite memories, and I wasn't even.
You weren't even participating.
Yeah, one of my favorite musical memories, and I wasn't even participating. I just shut up, and I started to sing, and I felt like the Lord said, "Be quiet and listen."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty neat.
Okay, you just opened up the door to this. Can you talk about your cancer?
Sure.
October 1993.
94.
Okay.
Did I write it wrong in the book?
The book says 93.
Well, maybe it was. Oh, maybe that's when I was diagnosed.
That's what I mean.
Yep, because I had surgery at the beginning of the next year, 94, and that's when I did chemo.
Yeah.
I remember starting chemo on my birthday, actually, February 15th, 94.
Okay.
It was rough. I mean, it was a long time ago now. I try not to think about it. I've learned. I had a pretty skewed idea of what the father heart of God was to me. I didn't understand that. Still don't completely understand it. How could you? But after going through cancer and watching my children watch me go through it, it made me think about God differently and more of a father figure and less of just the big guy upstairs, you know. That he really does care about me. I'm on his mind. I'm not just an idea to him, you know, one of his many, but he thinks about me. That blew me away because I sensed the Lord so many times when I was going through after surgery, during the chemotherapy I was doing. I felt his presence a lot of times. It was very, very uncanny and real. And so anyway, yeah, I started to understand maybe a little bit more of what the Father Heart of God looked like and felt like, and I never understood it before that.
And you mentioned you did go into a depression.
Oh yeah,
for the cancer.
Yeah, it lasted about almost 3 months. I mean, it was
Pretty severe.
It was pretty severe. I mean, I was like, I remember I would pray, and it was just like I felt like the words were just bouncing off the ceiling and hitting the floor. You know, I tried to read the Bible, but it was like reading the newspaper. I didn't feel like I was getting anything out of that at all. You know, but just because you can't remember what you ate a week ago doesn't mean you didn't eat it.
Yeah, you didn't benefit
You know
from
what I'm
it.
saying?
Sure.
So I think that's how those things are sometimes spiritually too. They still feed you. You might not be aware of it at the time, but they're still doing what it needs to do, you know. But yeah, that was rough, you know, and that was I didn't understand, you know, depression, and I just thought, man, what's my problem? Get over it, you know. Because I went through that twice in my life where I struggled with it pretty hard. The second time I went and saw a doctor, and he goes, "Here, take this." I think it might have been Prozac or something, you know, but it helped, you know, it stopped me from going down that hole. And I went, oh, phew, that's great. But then you learn you learn what buttons not to push. And when you feel these things coming on, you know how to redirect. And I've learned how to sort of navigate that. I don't take any meds for any of that kind of stuff. Haven't in years. I did for a while, but
Has it given you an empathy with other people?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been able to speak into people's lives directly that are going through it. I said, I know exactly what you're going through. Like you have no explanation of why you're going through it, or you know, and I get that. And you don't see an end to it, but there is an end to it. Just hang in there, man. You know, and you just give them some common sense things to try and do and work through. And I've been able to help some folks. Yeah, it's been good.
We kind of blew past one of the best things in your life. We kind of blew past your wife.
Oh man,
Deanne. You guys
Deanne
been married?
is awesome.
You've been married how long now?
We just had our 38th anniversary just a few days ago. So,
and because this could be seen sometime in the great future, when did you get married?
1983.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah.
1983. Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And so how did you meet?
She was she was from Rockford, Illinois. I was living in East Texas at the time, and she had come down and was going through YWAM, Youth with a Mission.
Yeah.
And she went out with some of her friends to go to a concert. And at this particular concert, I was there because the group wanted to borrow our equipment and not bring everything down from Chicago. It was
The second chapter of Acts equipment.
our gear, yeah, our lights and PA and everything. And we had a friend who was an engineer. He set it all up and ran it for him. And I just went to make sure they didn't blow stuff up. Anyway, it was a group called Res Band out of Chicago.
Of course.
And Glenn Kaiser, those guys. Anyway, so she came in with a group of friends, and I saw her and went, hello. And she walked kind of by me. I was sitting in the seat, and I said, "Here, why don't you sit here?" And she goes, "I don't know you."
Oh,
And I went, "Fair enough, but I mean,
you could fix that.
well, yeah, let's change that, right?" And so she's like, she wouldn't have it. So she went and sat in front of me with her friends. So I sat behind her all night, and I was bugging her. I was like bolting. I was like talking to her, and just all this stuff. And finally, I talked to her after the concert. She talked to me for a little while. She goes, "Oh yeah, I know who you are. Our church. You came to our church in Rockford, Assemblies of God Church, big church there, and did a concert." And she goes, "Yeah, my friends and I, we stayed for a couple songs, but we didn't like it, so we went and got ice cream." And I went, "Oh, challenge." Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty.
Oh yeah. No, she goes, "No, I didn't like you guys, your music."
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny stuff, man.
Wow.
Yep. So that's how we met. And she said, yeah, that was, she goes, I was a distant cyclist then, riding all the time. And she said, well, she goes, how far away do you live from the base? I said, about 10 miles away. She goes, well, if you ride out there, I'll buy you an ice cream or something. And I said, okay, sounds great. And then we ended up going on the road. I didn't make it out there. And by the time I did get out there, I tried to find her, and a friend of hers, that mutual friend, I said, hey, there was a girl. Da-da-da-da. Oh, yeah, no, she went back to Rockford. She left about a couple weeks ago. Her time's done here. I said, well, I guess I missed that one, So I started going to church out there. They had a church in a gymnasium, right?
Right.
And so I'm sitting in the gym. It's like a year later, right? And I'm sitting there at the YWAM base in this gym, and I look across the room and I see this girl, and I went, So after the service, I walk over to her, and I go, you owe me an ice cream. And she went, very good. But, she's super bright. I mean, she has like 300 nonprofits under her. She does all this stuff for, it's insane. Wow. I don't even know what she does.
She married up.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
She called off our engagement twice. I kept talking her back into it.
Come on, man. Wait a minute. I thought she was bright, and then you talk her.
Yeah. Well,
she calls it off,
I'm not
and you talk
stupid.
her back.
I'm not saying I'm an idiot, but she's darn.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I talked to her. I wasn't letting that one go. But anyway, so she's like, "Go, you remembered great." So then we started dating. Our first date was we went and saw Officer and a Gentleman. Wow, 100 years ago. That was in the theaters. Yep.
Well, so you got married in 1983, and you had three
girls.
daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Megan, Morgan, and Maddie.
Yep.
Okay.
The M&Ms, I called them.
The M&Ms. I'm hesitant to bring her up, but can you talk about Megan?
Yeah. My oldest daughter, she would be 36. She passed away in 2018 at the age of 33. She was married. She had 5 boys. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of circumstances that I really can't share, but I definitely have my opinions about certain things. We're not going to go there, but she did it. She did the married thing and the kid thing and the teach your kids at home thing she did it great for 12 years. She was my super conservative Bible thumper. Then the wheels just sort of fell off the wagon. And she was one of those people that if she asked for help, then she was a failure. That's how she viewed it. I can do it. I'm strong enough. I can take care of anything. And she just couldn't do it anymore. She ended up drinking, and she was in and out of some rehabs, and they finally got divorced. And then she moved back to Colorado Springs in an apartment, and we didn't hear from her for a couple of weeks, which is kind of unusual, So we did a wellness check on her, and she had passed away in her apartment.
Oh, man.
And it just tears my guts out. But
Of course. Of course.
I still am scratching my head over that one. I'm like, God, what? I don't understand. You know?
This happens to believers.
Yeah.
Is there a message to the church in all of this? To us
Oh, there
as
is.
followers of Jesus?
And you know what? And it's only been since COVID that the church has begun to accept, because you can go into a church now and go, is anybody suffering from depression, because of this COVID and that? Oh yeah. But before that, it was like, well, Jesus can fix it. You don't need to take that pill.
we don't need to talk about this.
And that's part of the reason my daughter didn't make it, is because she had her Christian friends around her telling her, well, you just need to trust the Lord more. You just need to do this, you need to do that. When she was struggling mentally with some of these issues and not getting help because she felt like a failure. I can handle this. I can do this. I don't need a crutch. I don't need anything. And like I said, she did it well for 12 years. And then it just, what I would say to people is it's okay to get help. Even if talking to a counselor or whatever, if you're struggling with depression, I would say get help. Don't just let it go. Don't think, I'll get better, because sometimes you can end up down a hole you can't get out of. And I encourage you not to do that.
The bottom line is we need each other, don't we?
We do. Absolutely. It's not just iron sharpening iron. Sometimes it's the hearts softening hearts, too. We need all of that. We don't just need to be sharp tools. We need to be sensitive tools as well. And I think that's how you do it, is by running into and rubbing up against and being a parts of other people's lives. You can't be an island. It's not good. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. If we're wrapping up here, if not singing, if not music,
What would I do?
What would you do if not for music? I mean, would you teach? Do you think you'd be a teacher of some kind? Here's the thing: you said you don't read music, not a note of music.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not really qualified to do anything.
I hope I'm not revealing too much here. I can cut this out if I am. You never finished high school.
I never did. I went and got.
You got GED?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I went and got that, but eventually.
What would you like if you could, in your dreams, if not music, if not singing, and I can't imagine you not doing that. What would you prefer to do?
Well,
Captain of a cruise liner.
yeah, well, maybe. I did work for our local grocery store in 2010 for 9 months and 8 days.
Did you?
Yes, I worked in the meat department.
Did you?
Music was really slow.
Yes.
And my wife said, "You need a job." And I said, "Job? I'm not qualified to do anything." So I applied, and I said, "I've been self-employed since I was 13." And they're like, "What?" So they're thinking, well, he must be pretty self-motivated, right? I mean, the guy's never had a job. Yeah. And so, so I started working at, it's basically Kroger. It's King Soopers we have out in Colorado. And I worked in the meat department. I had a blast. I mean, I when I first started working there, I didn't tell the guys behind the counter what I did, and I'm like, and so this lady comes in and she recognizes me. And she's like, and I have my name tag on my hat. That was on my hat.
Yeah.
And she's telling the other young guy that I'm working with back behind the counter. She goes, "Do you know who this is?" And she goes, "Yeah, he's Matt, the new guy." And she kept, "No, you don't know who it is. It's Matt, the new guy." She kept.
She thought you're like undercover boss or something coming into
right.
clean house or something.
God, it was hilarious.
That's funny.
It was hilarious.
Do you think you could do that for the rest of your life?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
You figure out what you don't want to do when you grow up.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was a fun gig. I was what they call an all-purpose clerk. So I did everything from unload trucks at night to go get the carts.
Right.
I did it all.
Didn't you dabble in the medical industry too?
I'm a certified nurse's assistant, CNA.
Right.
I got that about oh gosh, 10, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Okay. Now, what does that
Board
mean?
certified. That means I can work in old folks' homes and, take blood pressure and
Yeah.
stuff. And then I went recently, I also got qualified as what they call a QMAP, a qualified medical a person who can give out meds.
Okay.
So I got certified in that too. So now I've got both. And it's been great. What I've been doing lately, my full-time job, and when I'm not driving to Hastings, Kansas, Hastings, Nebraska, to sing a concert, I'm taking care of a friend of mine's mom. She's 92.
Really?
Yeah.
So you've got some qualifications to do that kind of stuff.
You do, yes. It's good to have them. So, but she just hired me. I'm not working through a company right now. I'm just doing it.
And I'm thinking if
personal.
you ever, have to go to prison for anything,
Right.
you can work in the infirmary
Hand out the pills.
Sure.
This will help you sleep. Either this or a big hammer. That also helps you sleep. But yeah, no, it's great. So I've done that. We also, before that, one of my best friends, John, he's a contractor where I live, and his dad is 97, and they were remodeling their house, and they needed to get him out of the house because of dust and dirt and hammering and sawing. And
Right.
so he came and lived in our basement for like 5 weeks. I took care of him. He was a hoot. I'd come down in the mornings. I'd make him bacon and eggs and toast, and we'd sit and then I figured out he loved the old, Perry Como and
Oh, yeah.
Sinatra and all those guys.
Yeah.
And I never really listened to much of that. That was never my thing.
Really?
Not that genre, like
those
big
crooners.
bands,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Never really
Yeah.
got into it. But I always liked Perry Como's voice. He had one of my favorite voices, period. Him and Nat King Cole, I thought, had a very unusual voice. So we both decided that we liked Perry Como a lot better than we liked Frank Sinatra. So we agreed on that. So I'd come down and I'd just Siri, play whatever,
Yeah.
put it on the table. I'd feed him breakfast. We'd be singing tunes. And he'd always go, now who's, is it Perry Como? I'm like, good one. Bingo. You got it again. He's a sweet guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
You think of anything else we want to talk about?
What's your favorite thing to cook? Well, I love making Mexican food. I make this green chili that I reduce and it becomes a burrito filling. I don't make my own tortillas. My brother used to do that. It's too much work. I don't know. Oh, yeah. I don't know.
All
Nothing
your
I-
siblings, the other 8 siblings, 4 boys, 4 girls?
5 boys, 4 girls.
5 boys, 4 girls. Total.
9.
Well, you siblings, you have
Oh,
4.
4.
4 and 4.
Yes.
Okay.
But 2 of them are with the Christ.
Okay. 2
Or-
of each, 1 of each. Well, as far as we know,
No, 2 brothers.
2 brothers.
My oldest brother, not the oldest sibling. I have a
Okay.
sister that's the oldest, Stephanie, but Ermen,
Okay.
interesting name, Irmen,
Yes.
like the animal.
Yes. Wow.
If you're familiar with ermines,
no, I'm not.
yeah, they're like a mink type critter. Anyway, yeah, Ermen passed away 15 plus 20 years ago, something like that.
Are you close to your other siblings?
Pretty much, yeah. Closer to some than others just because of, I think, age and because we see things more eye to eye than some of the other ones.
Well, a question I think that probably everybody would want to know, will there ever be a time, all these years later, because you quit touring in 1988,
Yeah.
do you see a time the Second Chapter would ever get back together to tour or at least do some kind of performance together?
No, because Annie hung it up like 9 years ago. She's, she's 70. She's 12 years older than I am, so she's 74. Is that 63? She's 75, something like that. Yeah, she's done singing, but so probably no. But
Okay.
I am doing a thing in Biola coming up.
And where?
In Biola,
Where's
California.
that? Okay.
I don't remember what it's called. My friend who's in the other room would have to tell me. He knows all about it. But I have a band. I have 2 bands, one out of Nashville and one out of L.A. I'm combining them because some of them can't make it. So it's going to be in California. And it's kind of a Jesus, some speakers from then, and like first Love Song's going to be there, and
wow.
some other groups from back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
So it's going to be this thing that they're doing, like to relive the good old days.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So you,
And me and Nellie, I got Nellie to come out and do it, and then we're hiring another girl who I've never met yet. Actually, we're doing this in what, a month, something like that.
well, of course, it'll be probably after that this will finally be ready to air.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll
But
see if
there could be more of these, right?
You might just put it in there.
There you go.
No, this is. I pretty much decided just because of what it is. It's a historical event.
Right.
They're putting it on for this reason.
Yes.
They're not taking it on the road.
Okay.
It's going to be a one-off thing.
Right.
I don't.
Are you
I'm
looking
not-
forward to it?
Yeah. No, I mean, well, think about it. I know my sister Nellie hasn't really sung since '88.
Well, maybe in church and things
Yeah.
like that, but professionally.
Yeah, but no,
on the
not
road
not
stuff, she's
yeah,
not.
no solo work.
Yeah.
So she's been like, YouTubing it and finding these like vocal classes and
You too can sing.
yeah,
Yeah.
So she's been working on it. She said, "Man, it's coming along. My voice is getting stronger." I go, "That's great," because I never quit. I just, I mean, I don't sing as much as I used to, but I'm still singing. So that'll be it. It will be fun. We're gonna have a rehearsal, and then the next day, bam, we're gonna do it. So
Wow.
here's oh Lord, we beseech thee. We come unto thee and ask you to help us. Yeah, I mean it'll be fun for sure. It'll
will.
be fun to sing with Nellie. It's been a lot of years.
It will be good. I look forward to hearing something on that.
Yeah,
Matt, it's been great to
Oh,
meet
cool.
you
Yeah.
and to spend this time with you. I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed this.
I've enjoyed it
and
too. It's
getting
been
to
great.
know you.
Getting to know about you. Yeah, no, it's been good.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you next time.
Yeah.